Hello, good evening. Bringing you a review of the FTSE 100 and European markets in general for the trading day, the Wednesday, the 13th of January 2021. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so as always, be sure to visit my site and obviously Twitter feed there as well. Okay, in terms of the markets then, so basically it looks like the markets certainly have succumbed. I did expect the rally to continue, given the fact that oil strength still obviously is continuing. But obviously the market certainly has succumbed to profit taking now, given the rally that we've witnessed on the back of obviously vaccine euphoria, and the back of obviously stimulus euphoria as well. So first of all, the bearish factors for the FTSE 100 today overwhelmingly certainly seem to have dominated. So again, I have to respect that. Having said that, I did attempt to obviously buy the dip on the FTSE and expect a rally higher. I was expecting a thrust. I think I got to 6815 at one time before the market reversed quite sharply lower and never really actually recovered, to be honest with you. As you can see here, the Tuesday's price action, I think the pivot high for the day on the FTSE at the moment was around 68117, where I could potentially have exited. I wanted to exit above a slightly higher, even potentially close the gap, and then obviously you might expect the market to sell off on the back of euphoria from the obviously stimulus news, and that certainly doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, so again, let's just have a look here in terms of the overwhelming bearish factors. So Chinese COVID rate starting to increase. COVID rates starting to increase in general. Europe obviously talking about a potential obviously extension in terms of their restrictions, and France also talking about a potential full national lockdown there. Sunak stated, certainly spooked the market as well, stating that the economy will get worse before it gets better. Mr. Bailey certainly dismissed negative rates, and obviously that sent sterling higher. And Preeti Patel certainly was the icing on the cake with her late day arrival, which again, she's very, very incompetent, by the way. Certainly stating that, and again, she's probably one of the biggest hypocrites given her bullying history, stating that she's going to get very strict in terms of COVID measures and obviously talk about further restrictions, talk of obviously Sainsbury's and Morrison's banning individuals that flout the rules and potentially only allowing one individual in without any family members, etc., etc. And we've already heard stories with regards to individuals that are driving 5 miles away to certain areas for walks and being fined upwards of £200. And again, all these are all draconian police state measures, and certainly doesn't bode well in terms of economic growth going forward. Okay, so that certainly seems to be the story in terms of the market. We already know with regards to US markets, again, negative bias there with regards to Trump impeachment. Again, that certainly seems to be the new story tonight. And then obviously increased regulation on tech. And again, that certainly is not helping the S&P push higher. So if you look at the S&P at the moment, I had a short on the S&P and I've got another short again. On the S&P I was short around here on 3808. I basically covered my position slightly early, and obviously we had a drop down to 3776, very impressive, before we bounced that previous resistance equal support. And I think the next potential move now could be potentially down to gap fill at 3750. So watch out below in terms of the S&P. Certainly is setting up for a potential head and shoulders formation top here on the 10-minute chart. So again, I'm not going to get too bearish, given the fact that obviously we have Mr. Biden announcing his obviously his stimulus package on Thursday. So again, so just bear that in mind. But again, there certainly isn't any harm for the market obviously being spooked in the back of Trump, etc., and to close the gap at 3750 before we actually get a rally higher. So just keep that in mind, okay, in terms of the market itself. Okay, now in terms of the European markets, let's just have a look here in terms of the FTSE 100 first of all. So daily chart on the FTSE, again, we have hit this key resistance around the 6850, but again, certainly no reason for the FTSE to consolidate here before it starts to push higher up to 7,000. The weekly chart on the FTSE, very, very impressive. We're hitting previous support equals resistance here around the 6880, but again, nothing stopping FTSE from pushing high up to fib 75%. So at the moment, it's just a bull flag scenario. We certainly seem to be playing out the bull flags, as you can see here. Bull flag here, helped by the US stimulus package. Okay, and again, this is another potential bull flag, could easily go to 7,000. So given the fact that obviously commodities, inflation, trade, etc., etc., I'm not going to go into too much depth, but bearing in mind that yields are starting to increase, we've certainly got potential quantitative tightening talk as well. So again, watch out for that. Okay, so let's see what happens there. Okay, Anyway, back to the FTSE daily chart. Okay, so again, retracement, but again, bearing in mind the FTSE has been super bullish as of late on the back of obviously COVID vaccines. That certainly is obviously pushing, given the fact that we've already vaccinated more than 2 million, aiming for 15 million. There was a very funny chart that I actually seen today with the global vaccination count, and the obviously UK certainly seems to be in the lead, and therefore obviously individuals are buying the FTSE on the back of that as well. So bear that in mind. So given the fact that you're vaccinating early, mass vaccinations, obviously herd immunity, the quicker you get that, obviously the bullish it will be in terms of growth going forward, and therefore obviously FTSE or the UK certainly is attempting to achieve that. So bear that in mind. Again, that could be a very key bullish variable going forward. But if the virus keeps mutating, then those vaccines are pointless, okay, to a large extent, and they have been undermined, given the fact that even though you have the vaccine, there are certain individuals that have still tested positive for COVID, and you still have to obviously social distance, and you still have to wear your mask, etc. So your liberties certainly are curtailed and continue to do so. Okay, in terms of the FTSE, let's quickly go back here to give you an insight here. Obviously, this is mainly the FTSE insight, obviously video analysis. Okay, so 60-minute chart FTSE at the moment certainly has failed to obviously push higher here. Okay. Again, I was expecting a potential thrust from the 6800 back up to 6880, 6900, and potentially even pushing higher on the back of obviously the mass vaccination program, the stimulus helping obviously commodities, as you can see here in terms of Brent. Let's just bring the Brent chart for you. Impressive, still remains bullish, as you can see. Brent still at the highs, certainly not giving up anything back as of yet. Okay, as we can see, the FTSE certainly has, but Brent certainly isn't. So very impressive. In terms of copper, let's just quickly bring up the chart of copper. Copper again, still not giving up any its major gains, still remains bullish, certainly bullish move on the day. Hence why I expect the FTSE to continue, especially with the Chinese markets hitting new highs as well. So bear that in mind. Okay, 10-minute chart of the FTSE, we hit a pivot low at around the 6737 before we started to retrace. So far, that resistance at 6770 is going to be crucial. If you break through that, then obviously we are looking to potentially test the highs of today, or should we say yesterday, going into tomorrow. So the pivot high today was around the 6816 before we started to reverse. We have this key diagonal trend line, but again, diagonal trend lines are not always the most obviously potent trend lines. Always obviously rely on horizontal support and resistance is your key obviously potent trend line. Okay, so in terms of the daily chart, again, you watch out for this zone here as well, 6795. 6815, and then you've got 6835, gap fill above at 6870, key resistance above at 6880, and then obviously ultimate resistance around the 6900 zone. If you start to flush on the downside, then you are going to look at previous resistance equals support. So the first areas of support below are going to be 6670, 6660, and then obviously your ultimate gap fill at 6615. That would be very interesting. If the market certainly goes into even more or further meltdown, then you've got 6550, and again 6460. So again, all these are possibilities. As a trader, it's impossible for me to forecast exactly which way it's going to go, because obviously the market is dependent on the news events that unfold. I'm not Mystic Meg, nor do I obviously proclaim to be. Our job is as traders is certainly react. I could change my bias 3-4 times in a day. It just depends on the news flow and the fundamentals that dictate it. Okay, so far it looks like the FTSE certainly is spooked by all these increased measures. Very surprised the FTSE didn't actually push higher up to 6835 and potentially gap fill today on the back of euphoria in terms of US stimulus helping commodities. Oil and copper, as you can see, were higher. China was higher as well. And it certainly seems that Mr. Sunak, obviously combined with Ms. Preeti Patel, from my understanding, I class them as two dimwits. Really, it's just a PR job. That's all there. There's no brains behind it, those two individuals, unfortunately. It's obviously just certain puppets that are sent out, and it certainly doesn't bode well, especially with Mr. Boris being caught yesterday cycling 8 miles away from his house and then telling others that you're going to get fined for driving 5 miles away. So incompetent government, hypocritical government there's no real consensus, there's no real thought process behind these obviously rules at the moment, and obviously that then obviously triggers apathy and individuals not taking the COVID rules as serious, and that's a reason why we've got the highest potential death rate in Europe. So that doesn't bode well at all. Incompetent government unfortunately has led to more deaths, I'm afraid. So that's something that we unfortunately have to accept. Well, we can't deny it, it's reality, I'm afraid, but that's basically what the FTSE 100 is facing. Again, let's see if we can break through this 6770 zone. If we can, then obviously we push higher and a potential short squeeze will ensue. Again, a lot of it obviously is dictated by Asian markets and US markets as well to a large extent. Now, let's quickly look at the European indices. Now, the FTSE, or should I say a DAX certainly traded lower and weaker, especially as Miss Merkel said that obviously more pain ahead. And obviously restrictions are going to be extended. We failed to test that previous high on the German DAX. Now the daily chart obviously has pushed higher, but there's been no follow through as of yet. Again, that doesn't bode well. Let's just have a look at the volume here. Bear with me. Okie dokie. So yeah, so volume certainly not obviously very convincing at the moment on these new highs. So again, just take that into consideration as well, folks, in terms of the volume. Certainly pushing lower, but again, having said that, just bear in mind we did break out to new highs in the German DAX. Is that justified? Again, I've already given you my opinion. Certainly isn't, but again, it's all about stimulus, and that's all the market cares about. Fundamentals can go out the window. Okay, in terms of the French CAC, now again, fears of a potential lockdown, or national lockdown should I say, certainly spooking the French CAC. Certainly hasn't pushed higher on the 60-minute chart. You can see here not testing those highs at all. Okay, and again on the daily chart, we closed the gap. Ever since then, we've remained weak. So the French CAC really is, compared to the German DAX, obviously you can see it's the weakest link. So just keep an eye on that in terms of that key gap there. Okay, in terms of the Euro Stoxx, let's quickly bring this up for you. Euro Stoxx remains weak. Again, this is one that I shorted today. As you can see, we've held previous support equals resistance, and it certainly seems to be extremely. Let's just quickly bring up the volume here. Okay, unfortunately I don't have any volume on this one. Okay, so let's just have a look here in terms of the market. For previous support equals resistance, that's really a key variable. In terms of a potential mini HNS formation, yeah, I mean, given the fact that we've not hit a previous resistance, again, if we do flush lower, there are quite a few gaps that the market certainly needs to close. But the key support level, obviously, the downside would next be 3520, and then gap fill at 3500 and 3440 as well. Okay, so take that into consideration when you are trading the Euro Stoxx. Again, it certainly is overextended from what I can see, and it has been for a while. Okay, again, your opinions don't matter, folks. Okay, just follow the news flow and follow the charts, and let's see what tomorrow brings. Take care. Goodbye now.